This is 91.3 FM, WCW in Worcester, Massachusetts, the Dr.Chris Radio Horror program. And tonight on Radio Horror, from the Friday the 13th video game on the show with us now, we have one of the developers who I had a chance to meet at PAX East. This is Randy. Thank you for coming on the show with us, Randy.
Hey, how's it going?
Randy, what is your role on the team developing Friday the 13th?
So I'm executive director on Friday the 13th, the game.
Okay,
and I work with Gun Media.
All right, and what does an executive director's job entail for a video game?
Classically, the role in video games is called executive producer. So, in just overseeing the budget and just checking out and make sure that the production schedule is in order and that everything's happening when it needs to be happening. Catch any red flags before there are huge issues. Just kind of the producer's job is kind of like following ahead of like a circus, just trying to anticipate any problems and ensure that everything kind of gets to where it's going so the show can go on.
With a game like this for Friday the 13th, have you guys had any super huge challenges you have had to overcome?
This game, Friday the 13th, actually wasn't always called Friday the 13th.
No, it was a really long title, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. It was originally the game was called Slasher Volume 1 Summer Camp. And it was an homage to Friday the 13th, clearly. You could see it whenever we announced it and did our teaser video. As far as, it started its life as a whole nother game, and we were raising funds for that and building it out. It was much the same gameplay. I guess the biggest challenge kind of came in when we did ultimately get the license. So we announced our game back in Halloween 2014. So summer camp, we opened it up to the world and said, "Hey, we're coming." And a few months later, Sean Cunningham and crew started contacting us, asking us if we'd be interested in using their license. And at first, we kind of were worried that we were potentially getting set up for a cease and desist, like a lawsuit, like we danced too close to the flames, right? And for about 2 or 3 weeks, we kind of answered their emails with like as few words as possible so that we didn't incriminate ourselves. At least that was our worry. But ultimately, Sean just got on the phone, called Wes Keltner, and kind of hammered it out and said, "Hey, we want you to use the Friday the 13th license." And we were like, "Whoa, yeah, why wouldn't we do that, right?" But that is where the problem started. Like the expectations for Summer Camp Volume 1 or Slasher Volume 1 Summer Camp were relatively low. Like we knew we were working already towards building a great homage to Friday the 13th, and we even had Kane Hodder, Tom Savini, and Harry Manfredini locked down to do that game. But now that we were going to be Friday the 13th proper, we had to figure out how to raise more funds and how to kind of close that gap as far as what the expectations were increasing to, and then ensure that we can actually build what the game needed to be and what we needed to have to make it a proper Friday the 13th game. So the Kickstarter probably was the biggest challenge to date.
Kickstarters can be really tedious and just overbearing. I had one myself once, and it failed miserably.
Oh, yeah. The Kickstarter, people think Kickstarter or any kind of crowdfunding really is free money. And I assure you, it is not free. It takes a lot of work, a lot of planning. We planned our Kickstarter for Friday the 13th, the game, probably for just a little over 3 months. And honestly, I wish we would have had 6 months of planning just to get everything ironed out and laid out. But we kicked off, and the Kickstarter ran for 30 days from October 13th till November 13th, which was a Friday. So we ended on a Friday the 13th, and that 30 days was, it was something else. Like I had a lot of fun, and I was doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the Kickstarter campaign, but it was nonstop. I mean, we had so many comments, so many questions coming in. It was constant. It was an amazing time, but also I was working 16 to 20-hour days, barely sleeping for the whole month. And I was still doing streams, like Twitch streams, talking to the backers, to the would-be backers, answering questions. It was a lot of work, and of course the rest of the gun team supported. But we made it, right? And then the guys at Ilphonic were working hard to produce assets to kind of release every once in a while to kind of keep everybody interested and ensuring that people didn't think we were like a fly-by-night thing. So we had real assets, real stuff being shown. So everybody was working hard during that time. So far, that's the biggest challenge that we've had.
How much of the game was completed when you launched the Kickstarter? I mean, on Kickstarter, a name like Friday the 13th, as long as it's legitimate and official, you think that would fund the Kickstarter immediately.
You would think that, but remember, Friday the 13th does not have a very good history in the world of video games.
Well, it's got one game. I mean, people say that though. It's like it's like Nightmare on Elm Street only has really 2 games. One which was on the PC, which I've heard is like really great. And then of course there's the crappy Nintendo game. And the Friday the 13th has 1 game. That's it.
No, it actually has 2. It has, just like the Nightmare on Elm Street game, it had one on the Commodore 64 and the PC, but it wasn't good. And the one on the NES was terrible. Like, I understand, like, the Nightmare on Elm Street game, I played it. I recently played it not too long ago, probably in December, and beat it. But it's actually a fairly decent game. The Friday the 13th game is not good. It's kind of a turd, to be honest. So, like, I don't know if you've played it, but the scariest thing about Friday the 13th, the game on NES, is the title screen. When the knife comes down and hits the mask, and then everything after that is kind of just like slop. You don't even play as Jason.
Was that a big thing for you guys, really wanting people to play as Jason Voorhees in this and not just be a bunch of camp counselors trying to stop him?
I mean, yeah, that was a huge thing. That was one of the driving forces, especially since we were going to be making a multiplayer game. Like, we wanted one of the players to play the part of Jason, and the other 7 camp counselors to, have to go up against him and try to survive and escape the camp. And that was always the game. So when we launched on Kickstarter, we had a prototype in place, and it was fun. But yeah, it was always very important to us that players play as Jason. I mean, if you think back into the arcades and the TurboGrafx-16, there was a game that actually fulfilled the fantasy of playing as Jason without it being Jason. It was called Splatterhouse. And that game did very well because it delivered on what people wanted. And we've always known that people wanted to play as Jason. People wanted to kind of see what it's like to kind of peer into to the mind of a madman and kind of have to play as him. So when we were getting ready to, like, we were wondering, hey, what are we going to do? We had just shipped Breach and Clear Deadline on Steam, and we were like, we need to start a new game, and this is the one that we've been kicking around for years, and we figured it was time for a slasher game.
With the game that you're allowed to play as Jason, have you guys been worried about the backlash of being a violent serial killer in a game and murdering people?
Of course. I mean, we're always cognizant that it could become a problem.
I mean, you look at the political things that are happening right now, and there's certain people running for certain offices that hate violence in video games. I mean, they are huge. They stand on such huge stances against it, and one of those people is running for president of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a fear of ours that people are going to come down on us, but it's honestly we're sticking to the genre tropes of the 80s films. I mean, it's not like we're creating or making it any more horrific than the horror films that came out before. So slasher films were a staple in the 80s, especially the early 80s, and we're just kind of paying a tribute to them. So if anybody says, hey, you're overly violent or there's violence against women depicted in this game, we'll say, go back and watch the movies, because that's what we're actually honoring. Like, like, this is, you get the chance finally to play a horror film as if it were from the 80s.
Now, here's a question. How many guys are in the game versus how many girls are in the game?
Oh, it's even. It's a dead split.
There's an equal number of guys getting killed in this game as women. In fact, you could have all the women survive the game and defeat Jason.
Correct. And if you remember back to the movies, almost always, with the exception of Tommy Jarvis, it was women who survived or actually defeated Jason, right? So,
90% of the time, with the exception of even the remake as well, yeah, because in the remake you had Sam Winchester defeat Jason.
Yes. So far, nobody's really come at us for that. I mean, we've had a few people say that this is irresponsible or whatnot, but it really is just playing a horror film. Horror films aren't inspiring people to go kill people. Video games aren't, pushing people to go commit violent acts. That's just not what they do. I mean, it's been proven time and time again in studies that games are actually more cathartic. They actually let you work through some issues while you're playing them, especially the violent ones, right? Like, we definitely know that this game is not some kind of crazy violent simulator. It's campy. There's some tongue-in-cheek elements. Yeah, it's dark, and there are some kills in the game, but I mean, it's honoring the films from the '80s that everybody grew up watching. They would rent on VHS tapes and pop them in, and they liked a good scare.
Not to keep like hackering on this one topic, just because it really does affect you guys, but I want to move on. What you could say to this is the same thing I said to people at GameStop when I used to work for GameStop years ago: is don't buy the game. Don't buy the game for your freaking kid. Use some common sense. The title is called Friday the 13th, not Little Mary Sunshine. Use some freaking common gosh darn sense when you purchase a video game.
Yeah, it's going to be clearly rated by the ESRB. It's definitely going to get an M.
Yeah.
There's no way it's not going to get an M. I will promise everybody out there, this will not be this will be a hard M. Like, it will legitimately be an M. Do not buy this for your kids. It is going to be violent. It is going to be as violent as any of the movies in the 80s. And
by the way, did you see the meme that popped up for Finding Dory? It has Dory and Nemo's dad poking Jason's body under the water.
I did see that, actually. That was pretty good.
And of course, you know what? I hope that the next Friday the 13th movie that's made, you put every single type of person in that movie that you can think of to get killed off. I'm talking about a black guy, a white chick, a Hispanic guy, a Chinese chick, an Asian chick, a gay person, a lesbian, a transgender person, a handicapped person, a bald person, a mom, a dad, a pregnant woman, whatever. Every single type of person should get killed off in the movie, and then no one can complain.
Yeah, Jason is an equal opportunity killer. He always has been. He always will be. Like, he's just, if you're on the campgrounds and he's stalking them, you're gonna die, or you're gonna almost die at the very least.
I mean, God, look at Friday the 13th Part 2. He kills a guy in a wheelchair. He kills a gay man in a wheelchair. Of course, I don't know if he was gay in the movie. He was gay in real life, I was told, because I watched the documentary and they said he was gay. But I don't think there's ever been a gay character in the Friday the 13th movies openly, right?
I mean, to be fair, the movies aren't long enough to delve into the backgrounds of every character, so that's why they use those tropes, right? Those instantly recognizable. That's the jock. That's the preppy guy. That's the girl next door. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they relied on those because they were quick reads. Like, you didn't in a horror film. Like 80% of it is the resolution. The killer is running around and he's doing his thing. Or her thing, if in the case of some of the other slasher movies that featured women, and that's it. Like, all you had time for was the jump scares, and then the kills, and then however it resolved, whether the killer was got away or was offed or seemingly offed. But that's there was only like maybe 20% of the movie that was left for any exposition or background building of the characters. So you didn't ever get deep into any of them. There could have been gay and lesbian characters in those movies. Nobody knows because they just didn't have enough time spent on them.
True. Like, I mean, with the exception of the ones that we saw have sex with the opposite sex.
Right.
So those characters aside, you got to question, like, what did the mom do? What did Tommy Jarvis's mom do that was wrong? Is it because she's divorced? I mean, did Jason target divorced single moms? What did Trish do? I mean, she abstained from going from the party. She didn't go skinny dipping. Like things like that.
Sometimes you're caught up in it, and Jason's like, well, I don't have time to figure this stuff out. I'm just going to kill you.
We had Tom McLaughlin on the show recently, the director of
Oh,
Friday the 13th
yes.
Part 6. His interview is now, of course, on the Radio Horror YouTube page. You can check it out. It's an exhaustively long interview because a guy who directs a Friday the 13th movie can talk. on
Oh,
top
I'm
of
sure.
on top
You
of
know he's
everything else
working
he's
with
done.
us, right?
Yes, he actually mentions that at the end of the frickin' interview, so we were like out of time, but we tried to go into it as much as we could. He writes the Pamela Voorhees tapes. Now, my question is that if these are recorded tapes that the police supposedly have, why are they scattered throughout the camp? Was there a flood through the town and everything washed up at the camp because that's where the lake is? Explain yourself there.
I mean, right now I can't fully explain anything, but I could tell you there are lots of reasons that things might be scattered about the campgrounds. Somebody might have grabbed them; they were dropping out of their bag, their satchel that they were running around with. Who knows? We'll
Oh.
we'll figure something out, and it will make sense. But the biggest thing, the best thing, is that a lot of the mysteries are going to be answered for the background of Pamela.
Oh, good, good. Now, this was, of course, mentioned at the Q&A at PAX East, that this is a standalone universe, and it only covers if anything that's taken from the films, it's only from the Paramount films, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We're definitely making an amalgam of the earlier Friday the 13th movies.
Yep.
So part 2 through 6
Okay.
ish.
Yep.
So that's we're going to feature elements from 7 and 8, but the campground, Camp Crystal Lake, and all of that proper is gonna kind of be an amalgam of the earlier 80s movies.
Now, how come Jason looks different than, let's say, 7, 8, I wouldn't really say 9, but let's say the beginning of Jason X? Kane's look, kind of evolves in a way, but you can still tell it's Kane Hodder. Whereas in this, he looks like Jason from Part 3.
Oh yeah. We purposely used Jason from part 3 in the game in that gameplay reveal. Like that was the one we chose to kind of go out with. That was also the one we kicked off our Kickstarter campaign and came out as a Friday the 13th game with, and he was part of our key art then. So we thought it was only fitting to have him featured in the first gameplay reveal. So that's what we went with. We have many other Jasons that are going to be in the game. We've already announced 7 of them, him being one of them. We also have Sackhead from part 2. We have tons of Jasons in there, including we're also going to have another one that is solely designed for the game that doesn't exist anywhere else by Tom Savini himself.
Now, are these going to be skins that you unlock throughout the game, completing the game in any way, or do you have to buy them all?
You do not have to buy them. These are going to be available for everybody. You will have to unlock them by playing, but you're going to play the game. If you buy the game, you're going to play this game because you're probably a big fan. You're going to enjoy being immersed in Camp Crystal Lake and the ambience, and you're going to be killing teens.
Now, the closest we come to a Friday the 13th in October, which is when the tentative release of this game is a Thursday. It's Thursday the 13th. Unfortunately, there's a Friday the 14th. Is that your release date that that the Kickstarter backers will get their game?
We haven't announced a release date as of yet. We're aiming for late fall. We've already kind of hinted at a time frame, a time period, but we're still at a point where we have so much left to do, and there's a lot of planning that takes place, and we don't want to come out against like the biggest games of the fall either. So it gives us some leeway, to kind of say, hey, when it gets closer, when things are kind of ironed out, when we know more about what we're working with, we'll also announce a date.
Is it going to be available in stores?
Yeah. So when the game does come out, it will be available in stores and for digital download on all platforms. So any game it's released on, any platform it's released on, it'll be available both ways as a physical release as well as digital download, and then everybody will get their codes and their packages sent to them as well.
Now, you didn't release it on the Nintendo, the Wii U. Didn't you think that maybe the gamepad would be great to have like the vision of Jason through the gamepad, maybe? Or you could, maybe people could take the camera that's built into the Wii pad and take a picture of themselves or whatever, and they could use their what do they call the Miiverse characters from
Oh,
their
the
Miiverse
Amiibos.
and put them in the game so you could be killed by Jason.
Uh, a Jason amiibo would be pretty damn awesome. But unfortunately for the Wii U, we didn't have anything against the Wii U pad or anything like that
It's
at
because of
all.
that crappy game in the 80s, isn't it?
It,
You should have said to Nintendo, well, you released that other game back in the 1980s that you put the official Nintendo seal of approval on. Why not ours, Miyazaki?
yeah, you sealed the deal. No, it was actually because Unreal doesn't support it doesn't support the Wii U.
Now, do you think it will support the Nix?
The
The
NX,
NX? Yeah, the NX, yeah.
the Nintendo NX. There isn't a whole lot known about the Nintendo NX, and I don't know if what the plans are for any future consoles. Like the NX is just there's too many unknowns. Unreal probably might support it. I don't even know. It might not even be a real console as we think of it.
True. There have been rumors that it possibly was going to be a cartridge, going back to cartridges, and people were like, "Why? But you can't store that much data on a cartridge." And they're like, "Yes, yes, you can today. I mean, God, look at a flash drive. You could store 168 gigabytes on a flash drive."
Yeah, I have SD cards.
And games are only contain like 8 gig. I mean, yeah, a sports game contains a lot of gigabytes, but like a copy of Doom only contained like 64 gigabytes, I believe.
Yeah, I mean that's still a lot of data. But I have cards. I have 256 gig SD cards, micro SD cards.
Yeah.
So it's like that's more than enough to contain a game. That's several games easily.
Yeah, in fact, an SD card is what a Nintendo DS game is.
Pretty much, right? I don't know I don't know if those are actually SD cards, but I know they do take SD.
Well, they're similar in design. You know what I mean? So you could say that like if you can stick an entire game, Nintendo DS, 3DS, which has higher graphics on something as big as a little something you could stick in your phone almost, then you got to think that you can be able to do that with like cartridges. And I know there are people who just hate the downloads and the all that stuff. How big is your game, and how long will it take to download it into the system?
Ours, it's still to be determined. We're adding more content, and that's one of the things that we're doing right now. Is we're building levels. Right, we just recently announced back at PAX East that we're doing Higgins Haven alongside Camp Crystal Lake proper.
What's that? Just explain what that is real quick.
So Higgins Haven is another map that we're doing. So we're doing Camp Crystal Lake. That was the first map we announced. Higgins Haven is from Friday the 13th Part 3.
Okay,
it's the Higgins house.
Yes, that's what you showed us at PAX East.
Yep, and there's a whole map built around that is different than the Camp Crystal Lake map. And it's just like Camp Crystal Lake is a huge place. Like just the Camp Crystal Lake map that we built is massive. It takes a long time to go from one corner to the other. But Camp Crystal Lake, the actual geographical location that's referenced in the movies and stuff, that's even larger. So there are many parts of the lake. There's many areas, and Higgins Haven is one of them.
Now let me ask you this: you have what looks like an open world environment with this game, correct?
I mean, relatively. It's not like you can go to the convenience store and there's a clerk working there.
That would be awesome, dude. Because it could be like somebody who maybe. What about like running into Crazy Ralph? Are we gonna run into Crazy Ralph?
You're
doomed.
You're all doomed.
Or how about running into the diner where they're gonna serve you Jason fingers, Voorhees fingers? Maybe run into Clayton Duke. and the only thing he'll say to you besides through a Voorhees he may be born, through a Voorhees he dies, and the only other thing he'll say if you like maybe you click on his picture or something, maybe it's like a picture of him, he says when I say the words Jason Voorhees to you, what comes to mind? Girl in a pretty sundress sticking a hot dog through a donut. Which, by the way, I asked what's his name, who plays that character, Stephen Williams, when I met him. He says that was a completely improv. I was not supposed to say that, but everyone died laughing when I did. I was supposed to say something like vicious, but I wanted to be a pervert.
Oh man. That's funny. See, that's stuff right.
But you don't have access to Clayton Duke, do you?
I don't know. We don't.
No, you
but
don't.
we will we will have a lot of Easter eggs that fans will get, a lot of fan moments and stuff that are referenced in the world.
Maybe the character runs out into the main road, a cryogenics truck drives by.
Oh, we're gonna get crafty with baking all this stuff in. So people, if you have your eyes peeled, you're gonna see lots of references to various films. Some other franchises that we might just be paying homage to.
Now, do you have to have an online connection in order to play the game? Will it just not work?
It just will not work right now. See, that's one of the things that we're doing at the moment. Is right now we're entirely a multiplayer experience. It's one player plays Jason, the other 7 are playing camp counselors, and it's a multiplayer game, so it is an online based game. So we are running what we call a slasher backer program. It's basically for those who missed out on the Kickstarter to go ahead, or people who just want to help us build a bigger and better game for launch. They are able to pre-order the game. They're able to buy the art book for the Friday the 13th game, the soundtrack, and various other things, including our interactive cabin, our digital cabin.
Yeah, I did that because I had only been able at the time to afford the digital copy, but immediately afterwards I made sure I upgraded to a physical copy because I want my physical copy to sit right next to my 12 movies.
Oh yeah, this is going to be something that Friday the 13th fans definitely want to be a part of. You want a physical copy, you want the art book. There's going to be so many cool things included in it. Harry Manfredini is doing the soundtrack. It's going to be amazing. So we actually have all this stuff for sale digitally and as physical, So
I definitely want one of the I definitely want one of the soundtracks because we will play the hell out of that on the air here.
Oh man, that's gonna get a lot of play. You're gonna be able to use all those songs in between interviews and whatnot, for years. But yeah, the slasher backer we're running. You can go to f13game.com and you can click on it and go and check out what we're selling. And just remember, every purchase goes towards building a better game. We have stretch goals that we're working towards still. We've hit 3 of them. We're working towards more, and we're gonna be announcing a 4th stretch goal that we're working towards, hopefully early this week. And everything that it gets, we want a single player campaign, and we want offline with bots to be a component as well, but we have to have the funds to make it, and that's what the slasher backer is helping us do. So we're working our ways towards those goals, and for every pre-order that comes in, we're putting that money towards the development budget so that everybody can have the game they want that plays offline, that has a single player campaign and a multiplayer experience all in one. And that's what we want. But we need the fans of the Friday the 13th franchise and of video games in general to kind of come out of the woodworks, look at our trailer, look at our gameplay reveal, and realize that we're building a game that they're going to be into. And if they jump in now, it'll be better for everyone.
Who are some of the actors in the game, besides Kane, who plays Jason, of course? The only other one I'm aware of is because you showed her getting, split from crotch to sternum, was the actress who plays Tomb Raider from the last 2 Tomb Raider games.
Oh yeah,
yeah. She had a really, really awful death, which I love describing it to people. So the Tomb Raider actress, she gets her legs split down the middle from the crotch, and it's gory. It was amazing, and everyone's looking at me, and the whole audience cheered. And I'm showing the video, and they're like, "What the hell, dude?" I'm like, "Hey,
we're horror fans." This is what we do.
I mean, people play what is it, Grand Theft Auto, and you got people shooting cops and hookers left and right. So at least it's a bullet. I mean, this is Kane Hodder just living out some long overdue fantasy that he was denied due to the MPAA.
No stunt people or actresses were harmed in the filming of the mocap for Friday the 13th the game.
True. So besides the Laura Croft actress, who else do you have that we would know? And then just let us know what else they've been in, just because we just might not know the name.
So the male counselor was played by Ryan Statz, and he's done a lot of mocap work, and he's a stunt man. So
okay.
most people probably wouldn't recognize him. I think he's done some commercials and stuff, but he's fairly experienced. But I think he's been behind the camera, or if he's on camera, he's there as a stunt double, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but like, I'll tell you something interesting. We were just out at E3 showing the game to press, and what do you know? Larry Zerner, Shelley from Part 3, comes down. He checks out the game, and we have him actually walk through the Higgins Haven, the Higgins house, where he died. In the movies,
Yeah.
where he
Or
was filmed,
did
where he filmed a good
he?
portion of it. What was that?
Or did he? Was it a practical joke again?
Oh. I think he actually died in the movie.
Oh, okay.
That was my interpretation.
Okay, okay,
But
okay.
But he was walking through the cabin and checking it out, or the Higgins house and checking it out. And we were just so honored to hear that he's like this. He's like looking around. Hey, look over there! Like he's controlling Jason, walking around. That's where I died, And he points to the to the area that he's looking at where and sure enough, that is where his character died. So he's walking around. He's like, "This is, look at that lamp. Look at this. Look at that. Like everything looks like it did on the set." And I mean, that's something that we've been striving for, was authenticity. And to have an actor who actually was in one of the films and a good portion of Friday the 13th Part 3 say that this is dead on accurate, that we were giddy, and having him come down, it was such an honor to have him come down and play too.
Well, what are some of the things that people are not going to be able to do in the game?
I mean, there's a large contingent of people that think,
Is
hey,
there a cell phone to call the police?
yeah, you're not going to be able to call the police on a cell phone. You're not going to actively be able to engage in sex during the game.
What?
Because
That's the most important part of Friday the 13th.
no. There's an explanation for this, and trust me, it makes sense.
I was expecting like some God of War, like, button mashing, and then you take a hit of some weed, so you just gotta you gotta roll the joystick up to your mouth or whatever, and then you gotta blow into the microphone in order to like inhale. Oh no, sorry, you inhale from the microphone, so the microphone then picks up your inhaling, so you're actually really smoking weed in real life.
The game kicks off after everybody knows that Jason is stalking the night, and some event happens, and it's then a known thing. Everybody scrambles like cockroaches trying to escape and figure out what to do, right? So we don't have the first phase of the movie in the game, any of the movies where there's the lead up and everybody's doing their own thing. They're skinny dipping in one place, and in another they're using their token up or whatever. We skip that part and start the game at the action phase, right? Everybody knows they're going to die potentially, and they're scrambling to figure out how to work together or not to get out alive.
So a game could literally last depending on who you're playing with. Which I also assume, if you don't, let's say you don't have a lot of gamer friends, or if you do, they're not buying the game, you can drop in or create a game for other people to join, right?
Right.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So, a game, if you're playing with a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing, and one person's playing Jason, and they are a hardcore MFer when they're playing this character because they're just used to being that type of butcher in games, the game could last 2 minutes.
Oh yeah, I mean, 2 minutes is probably pretty quick, but definitely 4 or 5, that's possible. Like if Jason is very effective and the counselors do some dumb things, or just Jason happens to get a drop on a whole bunch of them at once, and successfully kills 3 or 4 right at the beginning of the game, it could be a fairly quick match. So yeah, 4 to 5 minutes isn't unheard of. It's still kind of quick, but we're kind of targeting 15 to 20 minutes average length for the gameplay. So some games run a little bit longer, some games are shorter, but 15 to 20 minutes is the right length that we feel that we want to target. It's so far proven out to be a good estimate. So there are lots of goals in play when everybody starts playing the game. So you spawn in and you're alerted, through things that happen that we haven't really talked about yet. The game kicks off, and your counselors, all 7 of them, are told, "Hey, survive the night and escape Camp Crystal Lake." That's your goal. Jason's goal is kill everybody as fast as possible. Very simple. But to survive and escape, there are lots of ways you can go about doing it as the camp counselors. You could there's a land vehicle, a ground-based vehicle on the map. It's usually a car, and it has 4 seats. You can find the parts, get that working, fix it, fill it up with gas, and then get on the road and hightail it out of there. Right? But you still have to drive the car to the exit, and that has to happen. There's a boat on the lake in each of the maps, and you can escape via the lake, but you still have to fix the boat. And there's only 2 seats in the boat. So right there, we have 7 players and potentially 6 seats in these vehicles that are escaping, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another method of escape. You could find the phone, restore power, and then call the police, and then wait 10 minutes for them to get there, and they arrive at a random location on the map, and then you have to make it there before Jason actually picks you off, you know? So in any of these escape options, you're not safe until you get the whole way there, until that boat exits the map, till that car exits the map, or till you are actually behind the police, waiting to get out of there. So
yeah, well, that was my question. It's just like you're in a lake. You're not exactly at the ocean, despite what the part 8 made us believe. If you drive from one end of the lake to the other, is the other end of the lake like the police, where the police keep their boats? I mean, is that really escaping Jason? Because all these sites that he's killed people over the course of, let's just say the first 8 films. They gotta be, they're not exactly all in the same area. They're spread out all over the lake in different areas, and they keep reopening the camp and expanding upon it in different areas. So you got to kind of wonder where is it really safe? Is it just leaving the lake altogether?
We have areas on the map that are deemed like you made it to the exit. Now, who knows? Like, if Jason might have get to you later after you escape the map. We're not telling that part of the story.
Oh.
It looks like he won. The game resolves, and hey, 3 out of the 7 camp counselors escaped. Jason still is a winner. I mean, he killed 4 of them. Only 3 of them escaped. Those 3 are winners. The other 4 that died didn't win. So at the end of the day, when you're the counselors, you can win by yourself. You can win as a group. But it's very rare that all 7 counselors survive the length of the game.
So this is going to be like Outlast. Have you played Outlast?
Somewhat, yeah.
Okay, did you play Outlast 2 at PAX East?
No, I did not.
Did you see their display, by the way? It was like they built a church in the middle of PAX East because Outlast 2 happens to take place at a crazy religious farm. Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, they built a barn kind of church, and because I was like, always looking at it, I was like, wow, that looks like a church. And like, well, that's, why don't you step inside the tent? That's like exactly what we're going for. And you get in there, and of course, you're in like a sound deprivation kind of room because, you put the headset on, and they got really nice headsets, and everything's dark around you. They painted the walls black and the curtains, so you're really in this kind of like forbidding chamber while you're playing their video game. So that way when stuff happens to you, your reaction is, very genuine. But in that, you only have 3 choices: run, hide, or die. Is that the same with this Friday the 13th game? Can you craft weapons to try and defeat Jason?
You can fight. That's definitely something that we add. You can run, hide, die, and fight back, but I don't recommend going toe-to-toe with Jason. You can find weapons.
But you're not going to find a gun and start taking shots at him.
Right. As of right now, there are no guns.
Okay.
That can be found.
As of right now.
As of right now. Well, we're always going to try to do what makes the game most fun and sticks to the canon.
Yeah.
So, I'm just saying, like right now, the weapons are stuff like, hey, I found a baseball bat or a lead pipe or things like that.
So you can go take a running crack at Jason and then continue running.
Yeah. So you could take a whack at Jason, then keep running. But Jason, if you're to going toe to toe with Jason and he gets a knockout on you, you're probably dead, right? So it's very, very dangerous. It's like the last ditch effort. Like you don't want to just run after Jason and say, "Ha ha, there you are! I got my bat or I got my axe. Let's fight." Like
Well,
that's a bad idea.
but if
Like
you run, Jason won't catch you
run.
because he walks everywhere.
Yeah, you can run, but as you saw in our gameplay reveal, he doesn't just walk everywhere. He can kind of teleport places, right? And that's kind of our gameplay mechanic to kind of answer how the hell is Jason? A counselor just lost him. They kept looking back behind them. Jason's no longer following them. Then they run around the corner of a building, and there's Jason. Like, how did he get there? I clearly lost him. Well,
It's because in
is,
Friday the 13th Part 12, the remake, he has tunnels underneath Crystal Lake.
yeah, but that's one of them that we're not touching. So, so our answer
Teleportation. Oh boy.
for like part 6, 7, and 8, and stuff like Jason has abilities. Jason can do things that normally you don't think about, but it's there when you actually watch the movies and think, hey, how is he getting around like this? How is he everywhere, seemingly everywhere, and omniscient? He's teleporting. It totally makes sense. If you have an open mind and you watch those movies, that's what he's doing.
Oh my god. I'll have to see it to believe it because it sounds a little science fiction to me. Is it too late to get my money back? No, I'm kidding.
No.
Oh. You said there was nothing going to be. Hey, you said there was nothing going to be from part 10, Jason in Space. Wait a minute. Is the Necronomicon in this? Because, that was in part 9, and that explains Jason's ability to come back from the dead every 5 minutes.
We'll see what Tom McLaughlin writes.
Yeah, that's true. Did you ever read the Wildstorm comic books?
I collected them, but I only read the first 3.
The second, I bought them as a volume. So the second volume, okay. Which it's like again. So who owns Friday the 13th? By the way, is it Paramount or Warner Brothers?
I think this is an older franchise, an older license, so it's been carved up in so many different ways, so many times.
But last I heard, when the movie Inception was coming out, Inception was a Paramount Warner Brothers release, and Warner Brothers wanted the entire film to themselves so they could get the international money too, which is, they were in every right to want to do because that movie was, gonzo at the box office. It was a huge success. And I heard that they were going to offer up the Friday the 13th films, their entire library, not just the first 8, but all 12, back to Paramount if Paramount would sell them the international rights for Inception, because that one movie was worth 12 slasher films.
I don't know 100% of that deal. I can't tell you. Yes, that is exactly how it was. I heard similar stories to what you're saying, so it's very likely that there's some portion of that is correct, and that's fine. But there's other things. Those films are one thing. I believe Sean Cunningham owns the character Jason Voorhees with Camp Crystal Lake Entertainment.
Oh, okay. Now, has he always kind of owned that? Because, again, something else that you've always heard is that he didn't want anything to do with Friday the 13th after the second one because it was just the first movie. And then, like later on, he got back involved when they killed Jason off the second time when he went to hell. So he does own something to do with Jason. The character.
And other characters, right? So I believe he also owns Pamela Voorhees, but you have to know that like all these these storied movies, and the screenplays even for them, everybody owns something in them. So there are people involved in the first film that own different characters or certain locations. Like it's carved up to hell, and it's a nightmare to deal with if you're coming from the outside. But being that we're working with Crystal Lake Entertainment and Sean Cunningham, they've helped us kind of navigate those waters and figure out what's what and who owns what, so that we don't break anybody's rules or stomp on anybody's feet. And so far, so good. And who knows? Down the road, we could option some of the later movies if we want to do DLC or something like that. Like there are going to be potentially other ways to get at the later films. It's just we probably won't be focusing on them at the start.
It's kind of like how Sam Raimi does own the rights to the Evil Dead franchise.
So he owns them totally, completely?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming so. He wouldn't have been able to make that TV series otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I heard that they weren't, like, he owns the character of Ash. So, and that with it comes the other Evil Dead stuff, the term, the Deadites, and things, the their version of the Necronomicon. And I don't think anyone owns the Necronomicon, really. I mean, I own a copy. Yeah. You must own a copy. You can go to Barnes & Noble and buy a copy.
Yeah. There's some things, obviously, if they're public domain, you can't own.
Yeah, and they don't own the rights to Army of Darkness. And that's why the Evil Dead TV series only covers like the first two films. Like there's a flashback sequence, they show footage from actually both films, and they say that this takes place after part 2. And it's like, okay, they have yet to explain though how that even how does okay. So at the end of part 2, even Ash still goes to the medieval times. How did he escape? You know what I mean? There's still some things they have not answered with the show, and it's only like a 10-episode season, a half hour long, so maybe they'll get to it in season 2. But I remember a few years ago, somebody was trying to make Evil Dead 3, actually calling it Evil Dead 3, and they put it on Kickstarter, and Sam Raimi like slapped a lawsuit against them to stop, cease and desist.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, that must mean he owns Evil Dead.
Or he owns Ash.
He owns Ash, and then he owns obviously he must own then the title Evil Dead for it.
Yeah, but he doesn't own the actual movies. He probably has to pay to option those from the movie studios that put them out.
I mean, but like, there's so many studios that have put those things out on DVD and Blu-ray. It's like, who owns those?
Yeah, those are issues for lawyers to deal with. Lawyers are they come back to life more than Jason does. These contracts from years and years ago all of a sudden become important, and somebody is filing a lawsuit. So I'm glad we have a team of lawyers kind of dealing with this stuff. I'm glad we have Sean Cunningham at the helm, kind of knowing exactly how this license was cut up, what he owns, what other people own,
Gotcha.
and who to talk to get what we need. I don't want to have to know that.
So
the
this
dev team doesn't want to have to know any of that.
So the real reason behind the Kickstarter is revealed: to pay the lawyers. The game was developed. We just need to pay lawyers. Yes. You heard it here first on Radio of Horror, people. Randy admits.
It's all about the lawyers.
It's all about the lawyers. The game's been finished forever. They just wait. They're just like, waiting to see who else wants to order a copy. All right, I understand. All right, well, we'll make sure we blast that all over the internet. And the next thing you know, developers hear the interview. You said what?
What? But
why is this guy running with this story? What did you say in that interview?
I'm sure the guys at Ilphonic, all the people hard at work building the game, working in Unreal and stuff, they're like, the lawyers, what the fuck? Sorry,
now,
excuse me if I shouldn't have said that.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
You can censor me.
No, it's all good. I learned a long time ago that I don't give a crap anymore. So I'll say crap or I'll say shit. Kind of back and forth a little bit. I try not to let the F-bombs happen too often, but that's fine. You said it so quickly I don't think anyone's even listening. So, and of course, you were asked a lot at PAX East, like, what's next, after this, and when you're done, because you're all going to go on a freaking vacation and retire for a little while because this was so exhausting. But after you come back from your, 2-week vacation, you're going to be like, we're done. The game's out. What do we do next? Let's do Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, okay, right. You know what? You wouldn't be able to do Nightmare on Elm Street because Warner Brothers is such a pain in the ass. But I think you could go to Clive Barker and do a Hellraiser one so much easier. And in fact, how about this? You don't call up Doug Bradley and say, hey, we want you to voice Pinhead. You actually do it based on the damn novel where Pinhead is a woman. And the sexual, shit, the really freaking kinky BDSM sexual stuff or whatever with the horror is in your game. You make the most mind-bogglingly terrifying sexual experience in a video game ever. And fans will love it, and you do it right. Don't screw it up in any way. Really do it right. Take the time. Take a couple of years. Do it on Kickstarter again, and really give people this unbelievable experience that they could never imagine. the real hell world, if you want to think about Hellraiser Part 8, which was on the internet. There's an idea. There's never been a Scream game.
No, there hasn't.
There was
might have been games in development in the past. Who knows? But
there was a
nothing's
failed
come
Chucky
out.
game. The Chucky game got canceled.
Yeah, the Chucky game was canceled. Yeah, they were gonna do an Infinite Runner. I remember seeing Child's Play Infinite Runner on mobile, and I'm like, what?
Wow, really? You're talking
What?
about like the you say Infinite Runner? Is that like the one where you're just constantly the characters running forward and collecting stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was what they announced, that it was kind of like a Temple Run or one of those.
Temple Run. That's I couldn't think of the name. Yeah, Temple Run.
So they announced a Child's Play one of those, and I was just like, what? Why would you have that license, and then that's what you do with it?
That's probably
what you do with
maybe.
Really?
Yeah. I don't. Again, Child's Play is another one of those you don't know who the hell owns it. At least Nightmare on Elm Street, it's owned by Warner Brothers because Warner Brothers owned New Line Cinema.
Yeah, and back when we started the original game, Slasher Volume 1 Summer Camp, Slasher Volume 1 was actually meant something. We had talked about doing an homage to other franchises, other movies that we were enamored with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Among them, like, hey, Michael Myers is cool, Leatherface, wow. Playing as Leatherface would be amazing. Even playing as Chucky would be great.
What about
we talked about all these things.
What about I don't know. Again, I don't know how many comic books you read, but there's a great character out there called Cassie Hack. She's a goth girl that teams up with her monster friend Vlad, and they go around hunting down serial killers. That'd be great to be adapted into a game, and it's owned by one guy, huh?
That sounds like it could be a whole game, an open world game, trying to track down a serial killer. That sounds great. So the team at Ilphonic and the guys at Gun Media, we've always talked about doing other horror games as well. But right now, our focus is on making the best damn Friday the 13th game possible, and then we're planning on supporting this game post-launch for a long time.
Yeah.
So, like that's our goal. Like we signed up for this. This is our passion project. The fans helped us actually get this chance to make this dream come true, to bring this game out. So, like, our goal is to see it all the way through and support it for as long as possible, because we want it to end up being the most amazing Friday the 13th game that almost was never made, right? And it's time that Jason's got a good game under his belt. So, but we will look to the future, and other things may come up. Maybe we'll do a sequel to Friday the 13th. We don't know. We don't know what we're working on.
And it got you gotta give yourselves a pat on the back. This game's been in development for 2 years, little over 2 years.
A little over.
Okay, so you guys got a game made in little over 2 years that it's taken Hollywood never going on 7 years to get one frickin' movie made. You know what I mean? How ridiculous. We're not talking about making The Force Awakens or Civil War. Yeah, we're talking about a guy in a mask hunting down teenagers and stabbing them. That's it. I mean, God, Quentin Tarantino said, I will take $40,000 and make the greatest Friday the 13th movie ever made. Because it was like a couple of years ago, he was talking about it, wanting to do it. But they're never going to give me the rights to do it. But I would take $40,000 out of my own pocket and make this movie for them, and it would be done so well. But no one wants to do that. They want to hire all these names and stuff like that. And he was being really arrogant about it, but he's kind of right. You know what I mean? In his own way, he's absolutely right. It's like James Wan could take $1 million or whatever to make a Saw movie. You can't tell me that. We're talking about a guy stabs teenagers in a hockey mask in the woods. Fill it with a couple CW names if you have to, but for the most part, we're not talking about The Force Awakens.
Right, there's not that much CG. It's practical effects.
There should be no CG. There should be no
set,
CG.
If you're filming out in the woods, or in the cabins that already exist, like you could scout out some good locations. But I mean, it's going to cost money. $40,000 is pretty cheap. I mean, I would like to see. You remember that old game show, Name That Tune? I could do it in 5 notes.
Yeah, but
that's a challenge. That's a filmmaker challenge right there. If Quentin Tarantino can do it on 40K, I want to see him try. I would love to see that happen.
James Wan made the first Conjuring movie for $5 million or something.
I mean, that 5 million is a lot.
Yeah, and it's like
Money.
so if you're talking about okay, so we're not gonna say like Freddy versus Jason, which I think was the most expensive one ever made, but or the remake was. But if you're talking about like the originals, so let's just say pick 1 through 8, and inflate that price tag of what like $1 million was back then, it can't be more. It's got to be under $10 million.
Right.
So what is the big deal about getting this movie made? It's been stop and go so many times. In fact, the CW has completely given up on a TV series.
Do you know that they've completely given up?
According to Horror Hound magazine, at the like, little captions they put at the bottom of every issue, and I looked it up online. It said CW has dumped plans to make a Friday the 13th TV series, which again, it was only leads back to my original thing, is wondering, does Paramount own the film library now? Do they own all 12 films? Because why would they want to put onto their network, a TV series made by a competing studio?
Yeah, so I have no insight into all of that that's going down with the TV show. When they came to us, they did say they have a TV show coming and a movie coming.
And so did
And
Sean
it looks
Cunningham.
like there's tons of news coming out nowadays about the movie.
Yeah, the
It's happening.
prequel remake or origin story. It's supposed to be about Eliza and Pamela, and then leading into Jason.
Yeah, it's all happening from everything I'm hearing, everything you're probably reading on the internet. It's in full swing. They're working on it.
Hopefully, hopefully, and hopefully that doesn't affect your game in any way. You know what I mean?
I
So
mean, it, it could only help, right? I mean,
I just
if
what
there's
I'm
this
what I
movie
mean.
coming out.
Well, what I mean by that is I hope they don't go, oh, there's that game being made. We got to cease and desist that because we got to get this movie. You know what I mean? That's gonna leak stuff that we're doing the same thing for, and
Uh,
I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think we're well and beyond that
Okay,
kind of phase.
okay.
I think we're good to go. I don't think anything's gonna come out of the woodworks and stop us from releasing this game.
But you know how
Um,
stuff like that can happen, right?
yeah, I mean
Okay,
it could, but it's very unlikely.
okay, all right, good. So I was worried there for a second because as soon
No,
as I heard this movie was, another movie was being made or whatever, it was about the origin story. Again, a few weeks prior, the Pamela Voorhees tapes news had been announced with Tom McLaughlin. I was just like, ooh, I remember this is like, oh, you can't have Batman on your Smallville show because we have our Batman in our movies, and people will get confused because people
mhm.
are stupid. People just don't, understand things. I mean, we're not stupid. We understand there's two different universes. We're long past that bull crap with DC Comics and their movies. I mean, that's why we're gonna have Superman in a Justice League franchise, and we're gonna have Superman on Supergirl. So,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, hey, we appreciate you taking time to come on the show, Randy. It's been a long interview, talking, answering as many questions as you could legally answer about Friday the 13th.
those damn lawyers, they'll stop you.
You just tell those lawyers that you were talking to an investor. I'm an investor. I put my money into that game already. You answer to me. You don't answer to no lawyer.
Well, we do in fact do answer to all of our backers, and I try to do timely updates and make them fairly robust
Yep.
and chock full of goodies. So hopefully, I'm delivering to you, Mr. Investor.
Yes, you are. You can tell your lawyers they can take theirs, don't talk about that and be like, no, I answer to him. He paid for my house.
Done.
But no, seriously, in all seriousness, I'm gonna look into picking up the soundtrack, and I can't wait for the game to come out. I'm hoping it's October. It'll be nice Halloween. I'm just holding my breath or whatever, but I'm highly anticipating taking the day off just to play this game like all day.
Oh, yeah. Take many days off. There's a lot of stuff to do and a lot of fun to be had. And I just want all of your listeners to know that if you're interested in this game, if you're intrigued at all, you can get more information at f13game.com. You could also pre-order the game there, and you can follow us on Twitter. We also have a Facebook page. We put lots of stuff up on social media. Tons of behind the scenes information and updates go out to our backers first, and then we slowly spread it to the world. So follow us on all those outlets, and definitely hit up f13game.com if you're interested.
Thank you so much, Randy, for coming on the show. We look forward to the next big announcement coming out about the game soon, and we look forward to the game itself later this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.